So this evening we will be talking about the future of food, the future of drinks, restaurants and bars, and if we can find ideas from the past that could help us find ways to find success also in the future. And it's also good to look at what is happening with food and drink we consider German. How strong is the food identity in Berlin, for example? Why do people think about food differently when they fly to, say, Barcelona or Copenhagen? And what are they thinking about when they come to Berlin? And how is all that changing as the world becomes increasingly interconnected? So this evening is divided into two parts. On the first half, we're going to be discussing what is happening in the food front and with restaurants, and then in the second part we focus on drinks and bars. And the first panel I have, it's an amazing combination of professionals based in Berlin. First of all, I'm joined by Dalad Kambhu, who is the head chef of KinDee Thai restaurant, which is probably the best Thai restaurant in Germany and definitely one of the best Thai restaurants in Europe. Would you want to tell me more about it, just in a few words, what you've done before and what that restaurant's concept is all about?
Hello. Yeah, so basically we are a Thai restaurant that use local produce and cook food the flavor we grew up eating. We've been doing this for about 6 years now, nothing changed. The same and keep going forward the same.
Next to Dalad we have Arne Anker, who is running the BRIKZ restaurant in Charlottenburg. Arne, welcome to the stage. How German is your restaurant?
First of all, welcome. My restaurant is not typical German, definitely not.
You said earlier it's all about fun. What is your definition of fun?
So what we try to do, so we opened in November 2020, so when everybody was shut down, we opened the restaurant to just having fun, to not spend time at home, to relax, to just cook, and this is still what we do.
And before this you worked at Paulisa restaurant, another Berlin restaurant institution, and before that you were in the Netherlands, for example. Let's continue with our next guest, Maximiliane Wetzel, co-founder of Frühstück3000, and as you may guess from the name, that's a restaurant that focuses on great breakfasts and brunches. Welcome to the stage. You're also launching another location now. Is that a business secret, or can we talk more about that a bit later?
Yeah, we can talk about it later.
Fair enough. And then Billy Wagner is also joining us, who is one of the most famous culinary figures in Berlin. Owner and co-founder of Nobelhart Schmutzig restaurant, and we actually had a discussion about your job title yesterday as well when I saw you, when you thought that those titles don't exactly explain what you do, because what you actually do at the restaurant is much more fun than what it sounds like when I describe you as a co-owner.
Hi, I'm in German we say Wirt, and I think there is not really a good translation to English. I'm the one who kicks out people, but at the same time to brings in people, so that's pretty much my job. So, hi, nice that you're all here tonight.
So let's start by talking about maybe the role of history first before we delve into the future. Arne, if I may come to you first, when you think about what you do over here in Berlin, and when you think about what kind of food you prepare, and when you think about what the Berlin audience wants, what is the role of history in all that, and understanding what's been happening in the history, what the food and what the restaurants have been like decades ago?
Okay, first of all is to understand what is the past, and then you realize for the future it doesn't care. Yeah, the only thing what is interesting is the mentality and the physical problems from the past bringing to the new way in the restaurant. So culinary is one part, but emotional is the other part.
What do you mean by that emotional side of things?
So emotional wise is when you go in the past to a rural area and you go to the restaurant, you have a family business. You go in, how Billy said at the Wert, Heike, the chef in the kitchen, Sven. So you go there and you eat your schnitzel or you eat your Berliner Leber or you eat your Haxe, and this actually getting lost during the time. So what we're trying to do is to bring this kind of emotion back in the future.
What does it take to do that? Have you conducted some kind of research to try to find out more about what things were like in the past?
No, actually for us is what we like to do when we are coming in a restaurant. So we are coming to KinDee or to Frühstück3000, we went quite a lot, or to Billy. So we like to get friendly confirmed, friendly welcoming, to be hard. Hello, how are you? Let's have a small chat. How are you going? Is everything fine? This is what we actually do also in our restaurant. So we're trying always to speak with the customers and say, okay, is everything fine? How you feel? Does something happen? And if you know more about the people, we can do better service and quality service.
Billy, your restaurant has been gaining attention for many reasons, but one of them is that you have a very strong focus on ingredients from the Greater Berlin region. How would you describe your relationship with history? When you speak to people who know about the past, can you find new ways of using those ingredients, for example, or are those local ingredients just in the focus in the way that you prepare them a modern way?
First, the ingredients start with a relationship to a person who is willing to do maybe a different agriculture, and for that you have to know that mostly agriculture is done in a way that it serves food to supermarkets mostly, I would say. So we are looking out for partners on the outside of Berlin who can do things in a different way, but they also have to charge a different way. So what we learn from the past, I'm not sure. There are many things which you can learn from the past, but food-wise, we are more concentrating on the future and trying to look out what kind of techniques are there around in the world, and how we can implement them with the ingredients which are based in the region. So to give people the idea of what the region of Berlin is tasting like. So, and when you come to Nobelhart Schmutzig, I think it's one idea, but when you go to other places in Berlin, there is many more ideas of what the region of Berlin is tasting like. So what I really like is that there was not much 25 years ago, so we could, we have a frame and then we draw the picture by ourselves. We don't have that big luggage like when you go to Italy, when you go to Sicily, you're always carrying around this enormous, everyone goes to an Italian place and they expect a risotto. A restaurant without a risotto in Italy is not a restaurant, right? So we don't have that in a certain way, and I think I like that. So we are more free and more open-minded, but at the same time, we have to search for something. What's our identity?
Mm-hmm. Maxi, what we just heard from Billy, what did that sound like to you when you think about that from the point of view of your restaurant and how you think about what a Berlin brunch should be like, or what the Berlin breakfast should be like? How classic are they, and does the Berlin audience want something more classic, or do they want to try new things?
I personally find it a bit difficult to put a typical Berlin stamp on a restaurant. I think every restaurant should find its own way and create an atmosphere and a brand that defines an individual place. But I think the Berlin audience is very open-minded. They are very eager to try new things, and they are just very interested in coming to our place, for example, which is not the typical breakfast place. It's called breakfast, so that people know what it's about, but we don't serve the typical scrambled eggs with bread rolls, what you have at home usually.
Can you give us some examples of what you actually serve over there? It's interesting because obviously you're trying to think of things for the Berlin audience. You say it's quite curious. So what kind of things have you tried recently, and what do the Berliners want?
So we have two dishes on the menu which are the most popular ones. One is called Chicken-3000. Uh-huh. It's a cheddar waffle, so it's a Belgian waffle with cheddar cheese inside. It's a savory waffle. It has crispy chicken on top, a spicy caramel sauce, and a little salad on top. So it's very indulgent and very naughty, but also very pleasing. It's a perfect hangover cure.
I think it should also be mentioned, by the way, that I understand from your restaurant people can also get caviar and champagne. How popular are they?
Surprisingly popular. Sometimes I'm even surprised myself on a Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock how much champagne and caviar we're selling. Yeah, it's a bit absurd sometimes, but it's really what the audience want. They want the opportunity to choose from a croissant with a cappuccino ranging up to champagne and caviar. So it's really possible to offer and to sell that to the customer.
Dalad, you are the one over here with probably a slightly different outlook to things, because you are not from Germany originally. So you have been living in Thailand, you have been living in the US, and before you moved to Berlin, you were based in New York and you were working for restaurants over there. What did Berlin feel like to you, and what does it feel like to you now when you compare and contrast it as a restaurant city to Berlin, and when you think about what people want from food?
You mean now and when I first got here?
And also compared to New York.
I also lived in Paris for a little bit as well, in New York, and spent quite a lot of time in London at some point of time, so a lot of metropolitan cities. When I first got here, I felt like it was very different. I felt like the food scene here, you had some good spot. You have some, Nobelhart was there already. You have cool restaurant for sure, but it was so rare, and it was different. Now I feel like people are really open to food. I think you can ask, Per also, like Berlin Food Store. I think he also quite championed in terms of discovering places and stuff. And now I feel like finally the last couple of years, you see more of the cool kids. You see like all this restaurant where like, hey, this can be in London, this can be in New York, and this can be in Tokyo or Bangkok, and is not in terms of style, but in terms of like the quality level and how the concept and how fun it is and how professionally done and stuff. Like the cool restaurants are more and more now.
Are you talking about some kind of a generational change perhaps over here?
It definitely has something to do with the fact that the last 5 years, we have more people obviously in the 20s and 30s, people getting older and more spending, and I think these new generations are willing to go out and eat more. Because I think when I first came to Berlin, I was told, I could be wrong, by my German friends that Germans don't go out and eat dinner every night. They go out once a night, maybe, or 2 times maximum, versus when I was in New York or London, we go out 4 to 5 or 6 or 7. In Bangkok, we always go out to eat, and we eat at home for lunch, and we have dinner somewhere else. Like, it's a part of our culture. And, now it's finally changing, because now, I see my friends, for example, they're going out more, and it's a part of a lifestyle. And I think that's something that more prominent than 6 years ago, I would say.
Maxi mentioned earlier that Berlin audience is curious and wants to try different things. What has your experience been, Dalad, considering that you are preparing Thai food and you're quite precise and quite ambitious about not compromising? What has the reaction been to that?
It was shit.
Now you have to explain that.
In the beginning. Because we also took over like an existing restaurant, which is like quite famous in the art world, and they wanted to leave. It's not like I kicked them out, they're too old to cook, so we took over them, and there was like this resistance of like, we want Ed's back, was the name of the restaurant, like, we don't want new things. I'm like, go get them, I don't know. And there was, it was, for me it was hard because, like Nobelhart and Schmutzig, I decided that I have to progress on regional products, because one thing about growing up in Thailand, in Southeast Asia, you eat fresh things, right? You have 20,000 kind of vegetables and fruits all the time. So I kind of want to take that approach and use local produce. I don't want to use things that, have to be flown in from Thailand. And you got a lot of resistance of like, no, we don't want kohlrabi salad, we want mango. And I'm like, and it was 2017. I thought people here were ready, and but so it took quite a long time. And then after 2 years of working my ass off and I got Pear also support me. Billy, a lot of people in the industry. You came from my pop-up and gave me like a really nice bottle or something at the time. Like people really in the industry quite like supportive of that. And after 2 years of working my ass off, we got 1 Michelin star, and then suddenly it's changed. The night before and the night after is like the same food, and people are like, oh my god, this is so amazing, so fragrant and so well deserved, and I'm like, it's the same shit from yesterday. Okay, like it's the same shit. And that's kind of the climate of my experience. And I'm sorry that I know now, yes, Berlin has an open mind and stuff like that, but I think for somehow with Thai food, people have this notion of the experience of Thailand or what they had in Thai Imbis, and they kind of think that they know better than me, and that's sort of my experience.
At the same time, it should be remembered that obviously Berlin is changing. As you mentioned, there are many cool kids doing amazing things also, and this country is attracting more and more people from overseas. I wonder how you, other panelists, have seen this change. Do you think the audience, do you think your customers have changed over the recent years? Billy, what do you think, for example? Do you see something changing?
Do customers have changed? I'm not sure if customers have changed. I'm thinking that they are still the same, but maybe their palate have changed over time because they have learned more things. Because food is so important, not on a way of buying the right ingredients, but going out is important, I think, for most people. A lot of our farmers tell us that they have problems in selling their valuable vegetables. They have problems in selling their valuable chickens or eggs, etc. So it's more that the going out, I think, is more important than the buying really great ingredients, I think. So I hope, but what I see maybe is that the palate has changed, so and evolved to a better being, that more diversity is possible, or you've been to chunking noodles and know what spicy means, and you have been to that place and you know what that kind of flavor could means when you go to a Mexican place, etc., etc. So I think this gives opportunity and also experience to people, and that probably has changed over the last 7, 8, 10 years, I would say. And there are coming more and more international people to the city because it's still quite cheap if you compare it with Paris or London to open up something here, to work here, to live here. Even that the rents raised quite a bit in the last recent years, it's still probably one of the less cheaper main cities in the world.
Maxi and Arne, what are your thoughts about that? Do you see palettes changing, for example? Do you think people gradually want something different?
I would agree with Billy that the experience of the customer has changed, so the educational level is a different one than 5 or 10 years ago. So food or a restaurant visit is not only a necessity, but it's now also here become a lifestyle product, which was completely different 10 years ago in Berlin. People didn't really want to spend that much money on food, and now it's more and more becoming part of the culture, like Dalad already said before.
Basically, I should have opened a restaurant 2 years ago, not 6 years ago.
Arne, what do you think about if we look at what the reputation of Berlin and Berlin food is like at the moment? Where are we in terms of that? Do you think, what would it take for Berlin to get a stronger identity as a food destination?
I think Berlin is still on the way to go. Yeah, if you see the last years, how we go food-wise, in the supermarket, in the pharmacy, Markt der Neuen, Hermannplatz, all the food stores getting higher products. So I think the customers are ready to spend more money in food. Of course, it depends if they can buy it, if they get enough salary. Yeah, this is an important thing. But people who get enough salary, who spend more money in food, they go often more in restaurants. They respect what the chefs and the servers is doing every day. So I think we are still on a good way. But of course, it's not the way to talk where we are now. I think it's to talk about where we can be in 10 years. So when we see what we take for steps the last 10 years, then I'm very happy to see what we can do for the next 10 years. This is how Dalad said, yeah? Open a spot, yeah, 2 years ago, it's completely different than 6 years ago or 7 years ago. The same as Billy. So going forward, making a small concept, going for a type of cuisine, going to the customers, bring it out, to make it open, that brings a lot of people through other restaurants.
What I think what will be maybe very interesting is that, you know, in 2017 we co-founded an organization which is called Die Gemeinschaft, and just now we are having a program, an educational program, where Die Gemeinschaft is organizing a program where people from a bakery work in a restaurant, and a person from the bakery works in a restaurant, and a person from the restaurant works in a bakery, and the person from the farm goes to a butcher, and the person from the butcher works at a different place. So I think bringing out the right education and training people and training people from the second and third row of restaurants. You know, we are all old timers in a way. The program of Die Gemeinschaft is about sharing experiences and sharing knowledge from a place where you not have been. So I think it would be amazing from a chef from our side to work at Dalad's place, and also to get one of your women at our place to see how the system in this place is going. And I think that experience is changing something, and this takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, but it will do something for the greater good at the end of the couple years, I would say.
Dalad, what do you think Billy would learn from your restaurant if he came there for a work experience?
Spiciness.
Yes, probably.
But also we're sort of known to be like one of, very often when, you know, sometimes we need freelancer to come help, and most of the time they're like men, and they usually work in other restaurant, and they came and they always said that we are the most calm restaurant they've ever been to.
Most what?
Calm, like, you know, we don't yell, we don't shout. Mistake happen and like, okay, how do we fix this? We're quite relaxed, and we play music and we laugh a lot, and until last month we all women in the kitchen. We barely have like straight white men in the kitchen. I don't know why, like women keep coming to me because I felt more safe, I guess, yeah. But I want to point out about when you said about the Berlin food scene, you know, and where we are right now. I want to point out one thing that like my chef friends from Europe, or like, you know, in the food industry, when they come to Berlin, they know of this, that they need to eat Turkish food, that they need to go to Thai Park, because actually we have 30,000 Thai women, like Thai people in general, and I think about 20,000 women, you know, in Berlin. And we have, do you know how many Turkish we have here, descendant? Like, it's huge in Berlin.
In Germany, in Germany in general, it's 7 million with first to fourth generation.
So, like, you know, this is a big part of the city identity that people don't know about. So when my friends come here and they ask me what should they eat, it's like, you have to eat Turkish food here because it's actually incredible. It's like really delicious, and somehow it's kind of overlooked a lot, you know, when it comes to like food recognitions, or like in the guy, I think Pear, you know, is quite a champion for Turkish food. He loves it like me, you know. So, but other than that, I think on CC's you also mentioned it as well. But in general, like I think when it comes to like a more established guy or whatever, they seem to not be in touch with the reality that this is actually the climate of Berlin. You know, we have a lot of Turkish food.
Why do you think that is? I'm thinking about where I'm based. I'm in London, and in London we seem to appreciate Turkish food maybe a little bit more, and we get, say, Turkish chefs from Turkey opening high-end establishments over there. Why do you think in Berlin the case hasn't been like that when it comes to appreciation of Turkish food?
To open up a place where you go when you are sick, you know, you need to be trained 15 to 12 years, something like that, right? But to open up a restaurant, you need to learn 4 hours of something, and then you can open up the place. So I think a restaurant, you know, we have in Berlin 6,000 restaurant enterprises somehow, from the 3-star restaurant to the bottom. So obviously most restaurants are crap, and I think, you know, and So if you open up a place and you don't know what you do, you can still maybe survive for quite some long time. So I personally think that the most people who opened up restaurants from the Turkish community, they did this because for Turkish people in the 70s, because they were coming, all these immigrants here and were working here, and they wanted to have Turkish life, and they want to have Turkish food, Turkish spices, etc. And they opened up these places, and they were usually very down to bottom, and the German palate was completely different to this. So, and this needed some time to change, I think, to that this is evolving, and now you have second and third and maybe also fourth generation restaurateurs who do it very differently to their parents, you know, and with a completely different mindset, you know, of how döner kebab, how the meat of this is used for, and what the price level for this is about, you know. Usually a kebab is 3, 4, 5 euros, but there are kebabs now, maybe you can correct me, they cost like 13 euros, you know. And I think it's an evolution of the topic, which I think is great. Yeah.
But it's also like, you know, like people ask many questions like, why is KinDee is the only place that like use Thai restaurant in Berlin that actually use good produce and able to make curry plates fresh, you know, like we had like, you know, for example, Thai people came to Berlin for the restaurant to try because they're in Europe and they wanted to try. And they said, oh, this is so great, it tastes like home, this dish we haven't had for a long time. And the answer is we need to spend time, and time is labor, and labor is costly. And I think it's hard for, you know, in general for two things. One, like for the, you know, as long as the audience don't want to spend money, you know, on food, unless, because, you know, people spend more money when it's French, when it's, you know, Western food, when it's, they're willing to pay more. But when it comes to, you know, exotic, which I don't know why we call that, but according to Germans, we are exotic food, then people are willing to spend less, you know, and that's also a big factor that hold back.
I would also like to add something, because I think we're in the same area, like Turkish imbisses or Thai imbisses, or a typical breakfast place where you get like really easy, we call it etagere, we hate etagere by the way. People just see this as a simple imbiss where they go and they don't spend more than 10 euros. But when you start doing something that happens in the restaurant setting where you have, you know, polished cutlery, where you have napkins that are not made of paper but they're made of fabric, you have trained service, you have a wine list, then people suddenly are not willing to spend that much money. So it really takes some educational time to open up that topic to the general audience, that they actually understand that this can be pushed to a different level.
Max, staying with you, I think what's interesting about your concept, Frühstück3000, is that obviously we talk about a restaurant that opens relatively early in the morning and closes in the afternoon. Do you think Berlin demographics help you in making that restaurant a success, considering that in this city you have a lot of people who are working? They have quite flexible schedules, a lot of freelancers, and probably a lot of people who also work part-time.
Yeah, absolutely. When we started working on the concept and we were introducing the concept to like friends or the bank or you know, anybody that we were talking to, we got a lot of backlash because everybody said it's not going to work, nobody's going to eat breakfast at 12 o'clock for lunch, nobody's going to go out and eat at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, nobody's going to drink alcohol at 9 o'clock in the morning.
And they do.
They do, like, and more than you would think. So it definitely helps to be in a place like Berlin where people have flexible working hours, because we really rely on freelancers, but we also rely on tourism, and we really rely on gastronomy people, because people that work in the evening, they only have time to go out and enjoy good food in the daytime. So that's really a big part of our customers as well, as like colleagues from other restaurants.
If we start thinking about keys to success in the future and what would help us develop Berlin's restaurant scene to a better direction in the future, Arne, you have been talking about the importance of the public as well, and of customers, what they want, that should be taken into account. Can you tell us more about your philosophy in that sense?
Of course. So what is important for the customer? The customer is important that they come to the restaurant and feeling from the beginning very well. See a customer, see a service people there, looking through it and say, okay, I know you. I know what you want. Drink a champagne, drink water, come down, relax. Going out of the stress of Berlin. When you live in Berlin, when you work in Berlin, you have stress over the whole time. Continuing, pushing, you have to drive from Friedrichshain to Charlottenburg in 1 hour. And if you stand in the traffic, of course you take 3 hours for this. And of course you can take a call and you can work be behind it, but still it's a lot of stress. So, and if you come to the restaurant, it's relaxing time. And this is, I think, very important. And the customers, of course, needs to change because they need to understand what people in the restaurants are doing for them. They need to understand it, they need to respect it. And of course, people who want to eat just a bowl, they just eat a bowl. The best example is today. Today I had a person in a restaurant who comes from Marzahn. He's coming to the restaurant and say, I want to make a reservation. I don't understand the menu on the internet. I don't know how many courses I want to eat. And he's coming and asks, okay, my wife has 70th birthday. We are 5 years married. We want to spend time together with 6 people on the 24th of May. Is it possible? I say, yes, it's possible. What do you want? Just taking time. You want to drink a glass of water. Relax. He was, I think, 75 years old. And this is what people want. Just communication and relaxing, coming down. Be a part of it.
Dalad, what do you think about what helps restaurants succeed in the future in Berlin? What is your feeling?
I think like the government has to do something with the Berlin airport first thing first and make it run efficiency so the price for the airport, for the airplane can come down because that's the biggest problem we have right now. That first thing first. Second, I think it's on its way. I think we have more younger people. My business I used to be 50% locals. 50% tourists, right, and 50% locals, and now for the first time it's not. We have much less tourists, but we're still doing quite okay. We're still doing quite well. So I think it's on its way. The new generation, the open mind, the wanting to try, and also the question as well, right? Like before, 10 years ago, if they go to eat some food that is not German food, they're like, oh, okay, okay, it's interesting. Now people actually question, is that authentic? Is that appropriate? Are you supposed to be cooking that? Are you really, there's a lot of more thoughtful going on right now, and I think it's on its way. It just have to keep going, and that's a part of the education we have to keep going.
That all sounds really good, and I was surprised to hear such a tangible example of what needs to change in the future when you mentioned Berlin Airport. Billy, what do you think about this question? What does it take to find success in the future? What needs to change in order for Berlin to become a stronger food destination?
It's education from people who run restaurants and how they do their business. I think from an economic side, but also from a quality side. If you make great ingredients, if you use great ingredients and you have good technique, look at Copenhagen 25 years ago and look at Copenhagen now. I think it's a perfect example of what's possible in a city. And it all starts with education of knowing what to do and how to do it and what to work with. And not only in the restaurant scene, also on the farmer's side, to work with great ingredients. You need great farmers. But if the farmer is a dumb asshole, and if no one wants to become a farmer or a person who is becoming an electrician or a plumber, and everyone wants to do social media, I'm sorry for the social media person, but it's not the right way. I think it's our values in how we see our life and how what can be done with that, So I think it's all about education of people, and then
Maxi, what are you calling for? What needs to change? What needs to change in order for Berlin to become an even stronger food destination?
I think we're already on a good way. What needs to change? I think looking into the past maybe 5 years, what has already changed and has been very beneficial is the variety of restaurants in terms of price range and offers. So one of the reasons why we opened Frühstück was because we were ourselves always looking for a restaurant that's open in the daytime. So 5 or 10 years ago, you could come to Berlin with a bucket list of restaurants that you wanted to visit, and they were all evening restaurants. But if you wanted to go somewhere in the daytime, there wasn't anything there. So this is changing, which is already really putting Berlin on a better level, that you actually have the different time slots as well.
Arne, do you want to add anything to this before we go to questions from the audience?
I think what Billy said is the most important thing, that people understand what they can do for food and what we can do for food.
Hi, amazing to listen to you guys tonight. Thank you so much. Just in comparison, there is a Michelin-starred restaurant in Paris called Frenchy, and at one point they decided, you know what, next door we're actually going to make something more easily accessible. They call it FTG, and it's like Frenchy to go, similar techniques, good quality products, more accessible to sort of like in inverted commas the masses. Is this something that any of you has ever thought about?
Yes, but we ran the number and it just didn't make sense in Berlin. We still don't have, I love Frenchy. Have you had that lobster roll? That, oh, fucking amazing. The butter, the French butter, oh God, so good.
It's an incredible place, yeah.
We ran the number, it just didn't make sense. Like, we thought about open lunch, it just didn't make sense. The number spending per, the customer in Berlin willing to spend, and the labor cost, and, you know, and the hours we have to put in, we just would be maximum break even, so it just didn't make sense. And even now, I still don't think it makes sense.
I think for this, the customer needs to realize that they need to spend money for lunch. So of course, it's not 5 or 6 euros, it's 30, 50, 60 euros what they have to spend for lunch. And I don't know if Berlin is already ready for this. I think it can be ready for in 5, 6, 10 years, definitely. But for now, I would say not. Because at Paulisaal, we had also lunches with 5 customers. And of course, on the other side, we have lunches with 60. But you need to have the amount of customers to have the break even.
Very interesting, thank you.
Any other questions over there? There is one.
Thank you so much for such a great chat. I work for a vegan fish company, and I was wondering, talking to all 4 of you and asking, you're developing menus, you're getting spoken to by so many different distributors. When you hear innovation in food, what does that make you think, and how can we make innovative, different food, plant-based food, you know, all these new innovations, how can we make that more palatable to chefs who love to work with, you know, the original ingredients?
If it tastes as good as a good vegetable, then I'll take it. But I think there's one big, not that, you know, I think what you're doing is great. We eat too much animal and we should eat more plant-based. But also we should just eat more good vegetables from small good farmers, you know. There are plenty of farmers out there, because people think that eating organic is good, but if you get organic from the big farm, the industrialized farm, it still fuck the land. You know, and by 2050, we might don't have enough farmable land because a lot of farms are no longer able to farm. Like, it just become useless dirt. I think the most important thing right now, you know, we should all go to small farmer, and, you know, sometimes I just steam cabbage, and people are like, you eat steamed cabbage? I'm like, yeah, because it's delicious. Or raw asparagus, sometimes I eat raw asparagus because it's just so sweet and crunchy and delicious. And there are plenty of them in Berlin that you just have to go and buy them. And they may cost, like, you know, 2 euros or 5 euros more per kilo than Edeka, but you know what? It's worth it, and it tastes completely different. And for me, personally, I think that's the first step.
We are thinking, you know, we got invited for Eat Berlin to cook at the Futurium, and we were talking right now about what innovative things we have and what the future is for food, right? And, you know, and what Dalad says, you know, is absolutely right. You know, we have to bring what we have to innovation to do this better, you know, because we usually fuck up things. And I cannot judge what you do, and I never would. But for us, it's more important that our people who we work with do better agriculture, to do more humus on the ground, to use different techniques in the garden, to have knowledge about what is planted right next to each other, what do you do when you have no water, what do you do when you have too much sun, what do you have when you have too much wind, etc. And I think that's the future of bringing this knowledge to people, and that's what we try to work on, and that's we try to put all these people together, that they know what to do, and to face the interesting future what we have. So that's what I think is the future is about, and yeah.
I have to go now, but before I leave, I just want to say, do you know, like, the most delicious tomato, one of the most delicious tomato I ever had in my life? If you take a guess where it is, you would think Spain, France, or Italy. It's actually Berlin. And we have the same tomato guys, and, you know, he grow 20 kinds of tomato, and they all taste completely different. And he grow in the dirt in Brandenburg, you know, and he has his technique and work really hard and blah, blah, blah. And we need more people like that. And in order for us to have more people like that, yes, knowledge sharing, but also supportive of the farmers, and also go to restaurants that use them. Correct.
And, you know, we were working with a chef, Thomas Hedeleitner, and he was running Paul Garnier's restaurant here in Berlin at the Waldorf Astoria, and at some point he started to work for us, and now he's working in Tirol at the Schwarze Adler, and I visited Thomas in August last year, and I talked to him, you know, how is the situation, etc., and then he said, oh, he's missing the good milk from Erdhof-Seewalde. You know, that's the farm where we work with. And I said, you're missing the milk. Don't you have any milk here, which is really good? You know, you're in Austria, you know, you're in a cheese country, you know, and you're close to Italy, etc., etc. And he says, no, not the same quality. And I think that's what we have to support, the right farmers for the right quality. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then please go to Beet und Baum, in Markthalle 9 and buy a liter of milk for, I think, $4.50, and when you taste this, and maybe make a milk tasting, and then you see when you take Ökohof Produin or when you take an Haarmilch, and you really see the fucking difference from that kind of a milk, from the sweetness, from the richness, from the aroma. And when you start cooking with this, you can create obviously a completely different dish, I would say. Yeah.
Amazing. I think we have time for one more question, and I saw that there is one over there in that corner, maybe.
My question is for Maximilian, because I'm fascinated with breakfast places. I think breakfast is one of the hardest things to satisfy people, because it's a very personal choice. And I've seen this success in the last 10 years of different places. I lived in Paris, my places are there. And one of the most successful places today is being also a breakfast venue. And I would like to know, I asked them that question back in the day, how they did it, and I want to know you in your place, how you satisfy that personal, very specific need. How do you think you have achieved or opened that successful moment on people's hearts for breakfast? Like, what is your key of success, if that makes sense?
They don't never take down the French toast. I hope not.
Well, actually, to add something to it, we thought about the menu for about a year, and we did a lot of trials, and we tried everything out. And we thought we have to change the menu on a regular basis. We changed only a few things in 2 years, because every time we take something off, we really get in trouble. Like, really. But I think the secret is to... So we have one dish on the menu which is very, very classical. It's just a cheese and a charcuterie platter. So something that everybody knows, something that everybody eats every day at home. And you need this because you have the customer that wants exactly what he has every day at home. So you need to offer this. But on the other side, you also have to really push the boundaries and just do what you really want to do and what you think for yourself is right and what pleases you. And then you have a customer coming in who is a bit more open, and you just sell what you love yourself. And once they open up and once they're curious enough, they just really fall in love with the food. So you have to hit the personal spot.
And is your staff willing to cook almost the same menu for all this time? You know, like the staff gets bored on a point of doing the, like, or do you incentive them somehow, some way, or?
I mean, we have one dish on the menu that changes every week, like a weekly changing dish, and then we exchange one dish every so often. But there's like a certain structure in the menu that doesn't change, like the French toast. I mean, Billy, I don't think he's ever eaten anything else but the French toast. I try every time, but he's not tried anything else.
I have to say, I think there are maybe some audience members who are getting a bit thirsty now. Thank you very much for these questions. Thanks to our audience so far, and thanks to our panelists, Billy, Maximiliane, Arne, and Dalad as well, who had to leave already because she has a busy evening at the restaurant ahead. We'll be continuing in about 15 minutes' time. Let's aim at getting back here at around 7:45. And if you're going to get your mobile phones now, if you want to tag us on the social media, the tag is Manifesto Market Berlin. Go and get some food, get some drink. We'll be back in about 15 minutes. Thank you.